The Miami Heat may be blowing up their team, and there are a few clues that lead to it. First of all, it seems that Pat Riley is pissed. When asked about a comment made by Jimmy Butler, the star of his team, about how the Heat would have won the series if Jimmy had been healthy, Pat simply said that Jimmy should keep his mouth shut about the series entirely if he hadn't been able to play. This seems a bit drastic to tell your star to keep his mouth shut over a comment like that, but this isn't where it ends. When asked about Tyler Herro, Pat Riley had a lot of praise for the fifth-year shooting guard, yet he simultaneously called Herro, quote, fragile, and that he had to address his nutrition. All of this talk about his own players seems a bit out of nowhere and harsh, but this Heat team has been the scrappy underdogs for years now with very little actual improvement. For an executive like Riley who actually likes to have top-of-the-line teams, this is completely unacceptable and might just lead to some huge shakeups, if not a complete destruction of the team to plan for a better future. In other words, Riley kind of has a right to be pissed, especially at Tyler Herro. Herro has been set up to elevate to a higher role on that team for literal years now, yet he really hasn't even broken near into the level of your average all-star. It's looking more and more like Herro will become a high-end role player capable of dropping bombs on opposing benches. To be fair, he could absolutely be part of a great team in the future, but to be honest, it's not looking like Herro could ever be the main star of a team, or close to it. In fact, for 2 seasons since moving up to a starter, Herro has failed to really outdo his 6th Man of the Year season, so it's looking like Bench Destroyer could be the best role for him going forward. Sort of like the Harden who never turned into Harden. To be honest, at this point, it seems like his health may be a bit of an excuse for failing to improve as he was expected to. Besides this year, where he was only able to play about half of the regular season games, he did play 66 and 67 games the season prior, which isn't abnormal in today's load management friendly NBA. The Heat may just have to face the facts that the gamble on Herro didn't exactly work out, even if it didn't fail horrendously. This now brings us to Jimmy Butler, who, to be fair, nobody expected to be playing his best basketball after a career's worth of injuries at the age of 34. Regardless, he's probably on the chopping block, as he's just not the Jimmy that he was even 2 years ago, it seems. He's also been known to be a tiny bit toxic in the locker room, and that flies when you're at the peak of your game and respected, but Jimmy is a bit past that, and he could get cooked any night just like the rest of his team now. The Heat really are in a tough spot. It feels like Butler and Herro's trade value is at rock bottom compared to a few years ago when they made that finals run, yet the team can't continue like this. It was a good few years as the scrappy underdogs who could beat anyone yet lose to anyone, but this chapter really does seem like it's coming to a close.
After the scrappy underdog team turned into a scrappy first-round exit team, a flip must have switched in Pat Riley's head, and it seems like he's ready to go full scorched earth. Jimmy Butler has 1 year left on his contract before having a player option, and despite his comments of wanting to stay with the Heat until his retirement, that might not actually be one of his options. There's been plenty of reports of multiple teams monitoring the situation in Miami, with it appearing that the rumors of Jimmy potentially being shipped out of there might actually be true. And one of the top teams that are keeping an eye on the situation is the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, they should have been keeping an eye on him while he was actually in Philly and not be distracted by Tobias Harris. But now, the 76ers realize they desperately need a wing that can perform in the playoffs. So basically, Jimmy Butler. With Embiid doing the disappearing act every May once the second round rolls around, Jimmy being added to this team would give them a lot more offense alongside Tyrese Maxey. And this is something that would allow the Sixers to stay competitive against the super team Celtics going forward, especially given that when healthy, Jimmy seems to be somewhat of a Boston kryptonite. But unfortunately for Philly fans, this isn't going to happen. The top assets for the Sixers, assuming that Embiid and Maxey are untouchable in a Jimmy Butler trade, would be Tobias Harris and 4 first-round picks. As far as Tobias goes, we've clearly seen how big of a mistake it is to assume that him and Jimmy are even close to being on the same level. And as for the draft picks, anyone who's paid any attention to Pat Riley's tenure in the NBA, you would know that that man does not do trades for star players without getting one back. Picks be damned. And given what the Heat have been able to do with their draft picks thanks to their amazing scouting department, I don't really blame them for not rushing toward draft picks. Of course, there are other teams looking to add Jimmy, but the most likely target is probably the Cleveland Cavaliers. Off the rip, this clearly wouldn't be Jimmy's first choice of landing spots, but it is probably the best option for the Miami Heat. Back when Donovan Mitchell was first being shopped around in Utah, he had actually said he originally thought the Jazz would either send him to the Knicks, the Wizards, or the Miami Heat, putting emphasis on the Heat because of how much time he had spent there over that summer playing in Pro-Am games. During that same time he was down in South Beach, he was also working out with Bam Adebayo, who he had also said in that same interview is one of the guys he would like to play beside. But ultimately, Donovan was dealt to the Cavs, and he continued to have a great run with that squad. But his arrival with the team did mean a diminished role for a budding star in Darius Garland, taking him from 22-8 now down to 18-6 this season, which means they're not getting their full potential out of him. So if you trade Donovan for Jimmy, you're opening your backcourt up even more, getting more potential out of Garland without losing a ton of offense, especially in the playoffs. Jimmy and the rest of the Cavs timelines obviously don't perfectly match up, but the Cavs are most likely going to lose Donovan after next year anyways, so might as well give it a try. The Cavs have proved that they can make the playoffs, and if Evan Mobley continues to develop, then that also should work in their favor for a one-year push next season. Similar to what the Raptors did with Kawhi. And similarly to that situation as well, I don't think Pat Riley is too concerned about Jimmy's wish list for destinations. Pat Riley might even look to send him to Cleveland as a way to get a little payback if the disdain that he held in that interview is really true. Of course, Jimmy wasn't the only one on Pat's shit list, as he also called out Tyler Herro for being fragile. He went a little further, saying that, quote, maybe one day he'll surprise everyone and play every game, end quote. So yeah, not great comments coming from your president, and so we might also be on Tyler Herro pack watch, as Jordan Poole can only take so many hits before people start realizing there might be an even bigger fraud in the NBA. It's hard to exactly say what might happen with Herro, as Pat did also sing his high praises, saying that he 100% deserves to be a starter. Whether he's just saying that to boost his trade stock, who knows? I guess we'll find out in September. The Heat, since entering the Jimmy Butler era, have consistently been one of those teams you always need to be aware of. Even if they end up only winning 44 games as the 8th seed, they might come around and just knock off the Boston Celtics like that. But it seems like that time might be coming to an end, as they look to transition into the future behind Bam Adebayo. If you made it this far, give the video a like. While you're down there, you might as well just subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think about the situation going on in Miami. And as for that, we'll see you next week for the upload.